Let's take the callers now in the Savage Nation. Marcel in Hawaii, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Yes, listen, Dr. Savage, it is up to you. It is up to you to throw your hat in the ring. We need someone like you to lead this country. You love your country. I hear your show every day, sometimes 4 and 5 times a day. I listen to the rebroadcast. Sir, you are the one. It's up to you. Stop.
Well, let me explain something again. I'm never going to run for office. Well, never is a long time, and I shouldn't say that. Someone once taught me a long time ago, I never use the word never. So I'm not running for office. I don't intend to run for office. I'm not playing with running for office for 2 reasons. You want to hear them? I don't have the emotional nature to run for office. I could not do it. I can't lie. I can't kiss babies. I can't go up on fake debate me the way he did with the Republicans. If I was up there last week and that little thing started to try and boss people, all right, we're going for a break now. You just hold on there. I got you all with rings in your nose. You hold on there. I'm Will Flitz. I got you all by the nose. I'll be right back. We're breaking now. I would have. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't have stood for that. I would have told him to shut his little yapper. I would have said, shut your pie hole and listen. You're just a moderator. Don't open your mouth up on me. I'll tell you the questions I want to answer. Now you're going to see the country respond to a man who takes these media nobodies and reduces them to what they are, the Lilliputians that they are. That's what we need for leadership. And unless they're willing to take these ringleaders and crush them, they're never going to become president. But having said that, I'm not running for office. Because A, I don't have the emotional temperament. And number 2, I'm unelectable. You want me to be very clear with you? I could get 15% of the vote. I know that. But I'm unelectable. Do you understand that as well?
Dr. Savage, sir, please, you are the perfect person to turn it all around. Don't you see? Don't you see that? Sir, I beg of you, I would be the first one to jump out there and do all I can. And I know, just like you don't use the media for anything that you're driving, you have followers, sir. Sir, I beg you.
No, look, I have listeners, but I'm not a politician. And the reason I have listeners is because I'm not a politician. The minute I became a politician, I would lose all credibility. Don't you see that?
Sir, if you act like a politician, you would lose credibility. You are not a politician. You can't even act like one, sir. You're one of the real, true Americans left.
Look what they just did to Herman Cain with false accusations. What do you think they would do to me?
Herman Cain, sir, with all due respect, you cannot compare yourself to Herman Cain. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're a much different person than Herman Cain is, and people respect you and know you. You have a different track record than Herman Cain. Sir.
Yes, but if they can invent women to come out of the closet who make up out of whole cloth the lies that they've made up. You saw those low-life degenerates that were marched out by that disgusting creature lawyer. You saw that. And the media treated that disgusting low-life lawyer like she was the Holy Grail because they wanted to destroy Herman Cain. What do you think they would do to gin up a story about me?
But how would you handle it versus the way...
Well, let me put it to you this way. I was banned in Britain based upon false quotes taken from me out of context and sent over to England by the United States government. I have suspicions I know who did it. And look what they achieved, and look how I had no support here. So what do you think would happen if I ever threw my hat in the ring for a thing like this, which I'm not going to do? What do you think would happen?
Well, I tell you what, sir, with all due respect, I love you. I love your show. I am going to drum up the folks.
No. Come on, don't do that. Don't do that because I'm not running for office. I'm not a politician. I don't have it for this business. It's not where I'm supposed to be. You know, the only way that could ever happen, because it can happen because I don't believe in fantasy, is if God came down into my room and said to me, okay, there's the Red Sea, you're going to part it. Okay, but that hasn't happened. You know, God would have to come down into my bed in my living room and tell me to part the Red Sea for me to do a thing like that. In many ways, Marcel, without getting a little overly dramatic here, you remember what happened in the myth of the biblical myth about Moses? When God tells Moses to lead his people, what he said to God, do you remember that story?
Yes.
He said, I'm not made to be a leader. He said, I have impediments. He said, I stutter. I have this wrong with me. I have that wrong with me. And God said, that's exactly why I'm choosing you, is because you are imperfect. And that's what you're saying to me, Marcel. What you're saying to me is, please be our Moses. Please part the Red Sea for all of us out here who see a hopelessness ahead of us, a destruction of the greatest country in the history of the world, and a bunch of scoundrels trying to take over the country from this scoundrel. Please, you're asking me to do that, but you're asking the wrong man, because it's not me, Marcel. It's not my calling.
Sir, with all due respect, if I could say one more thing. Remember, you talked about how you got into radio, how you sent out all of those demos. And
right.
You didn't realize at some point earlier in your life, in your career, that this is what you were going to do. You look at you now. Look at what you've done to radio. You don't even understand how you've affected me in radio. I'm an African American. I've done radio for 20 years. Don't you understand that listening to your show for the last 3 years, you have changed my life, okay? And I'm not going to get emotional here. But I'm telling you, we really, you didn't realize you were going to be as big a force in radio as you are today. And yes, you are. I believe you're number one. You say number two. I say number one. But please, this is the next level. I'm literally begging of you, and I know it may sound funny to you or some other.
No, it doesn't sound funny, and don't think that you're the first person to have suggested this. But let me say again, I'm not even considering it, because here's what would happen. They would bring down upon me and my family the worst accusations that are all false imaginable, and I will not do that to people. I will not do to others what was done to me. I will not do that. See, I don't walk alone on this earth. I walk as part of a family, and I would not let my family be touched by those animals. You're dealing with the most vicious people on the planet. These are the most vicious people on the planet. They're worse than the Islamists. The Democrat operatives and the Republican operatives are as vicious as the Taliban when it comes to preserving their right to steal money from the public. I don't know how else to put it, Marcel, but what I just said, you can set that in stone.
They've tried to do that to you with your radio show, and you're number one.
Well, hold on. Let's not get carried away. My show is number 3 on terrestrial radio, and on web broadcasting, it's number 2 only to Rush Limbaugh, and that's pretty amazing when you consider that I'm not on a lot of big stations and that I have almost no publicity. I mean, that's a pretty big statement unto itself. A lot of young people are tuning into Michael Savage for various and sundry reasons. That doesn't mean that I'm going to run for office, Marcel. I want to continue doing radio as long as God gives me the strength to get up, keep my mind focused, stay tuned into what's going on, and be able to articulate my views the way I do them on the radio. And I want to continue to write my books. I really don't want to do anything else, Marcel.
I understand that, sir. I understand that you want to just do radio the way that you've been doing it, but we need you.
You know,
okay?
Marcel, isn't it enough that I influence the thoughts of people, that I have influence over their view of the world? Is that not enough, that I can tell you the way I see it? Don't you think it's a miracle that I'm still allowed on your radio station in Democrat, socialist Hawaii, that your radio station is still brave enough to carry this viewpoint, which is antithetical to the corrupt welfare state that you live in? Don't you think that's a miracle?
Yes, it is. And by the way, sir, I'm listening to you via an iPhone app. Don't you understand that there are millions of people who listen to radio? No one listens. Well, I'm not going to say no.
No, that's interesting what you just said, because there are millions of young people who listen to me on iPhone apps, and none of that is counted in ratings. I understand that. That's another factor, by the way, that's very interesting. People in the industry don't even know what's happening to them. I could broadcast out of my living room on those stations and have 10 million listeners. Do you know that, Marcel?
That's what I'm trying to tell you, sir. You have moved me. I have a radio station that we have millions of listeners via a radio station app. I know if you I'm listening to the Savage radio app. There are thousands.
No, it's amazing. It's not even monetized. There's no money in it. It's not counted in ratings, and yet it's the biggest and the biggest growth area in radio. But that's a separate thing. Marcel, let me go back to another aspect of this thing, Mike Run kind of thing. I'm not Moses. That's number one. I'm not going to part the Red Sea, and you've got to understand that. B, it's not that I'm happy in what I do. I'm not a happy person. I have never been a happy person. I've always been an agonized soul, which is why I'm very good at the radio, because it allows me to take my agony and apply it to the problems in the world and try to make sense out of them. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but the way an artist goes into his studio and tries to make something perfect out of something imperfect, the way an artist would go into his studio and try to make a scientist try to make order out of chaos. That's what the radio is to me, and that's why I think it's so important to you, Marcel. You're living in a chaotic, disorderly world, and when you listen to me speak, it's as though you're hearing something clear come out. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.